And we're back with a quick tutorial on Satisfactory. And today it's all about getting from the start of the game to mid-game. And mid-game would be defined by me as getting coal power up. Getting coal power is just a massive leap forward because you don't have to keep refueling your bioburners, and it produces so much more power that you can really start expanding your factory. You just chuck in coal, you chuck in water, you're done. That is priority number 1. Priority number 2 is getting access to steel. Namely because, well, the steel tech is great, but more importantly, it's to do with transport belts. Your Mark 1 transport belts are made out of iron plate, very cheap, easy to produce, but only can transport about 60 items per minute. Mark 2 doubles that. However, it requires this reinforced iron plate, which is a very, very ugly thing to produce. This here is what it takes to produce 10 reinforced iron plate per minute. These two assemblers here need iron plate and screws. There's the iron plate being produced over there in those 3 assemblers. These 3 assemblers produce the screws, and then you have to have 2 assemblers producing iron rods, and then you need 4 furnaces at the back producing all of the necessary raw components. On the right side, this only requires iron ore, but this is going to be an expensive setup to produce 10 reinforced iron plate per minute. This will produce 15 steel beams per minute. 15! That means you can get some 15 chunks of Mark III transport belt per minute for this footprint. And not only that, there's more. Yeah, this one over here isn't even set up to make steel beams. That's just made steel pipe. Yeah, you can make 15 steel beams and 20 steel pipe for 2 furnaces and 2 constructors. That's it. That's why getting to this is so critical. Now, when I'm going through this, we're going to try and avoid doing as much manual crafting as possible. There is some that's kind of unavoidable and helps you speed things along, but if you want to speed run the game, that's a little bit more grindy. We're more having a little bit of fun while we're getting where we're going, while skipping most of the boring grindy stuff as much as we possibly can. So coal power and steel are our primary and secondary objectives. They're the ones we really care about the most. However, we will be picking up one other thing along the way, and that is Blade Runners. Blade Runners just make your mobility so much better that we'll probably get this straight away. Our final objective, though, this one is if we can, will be to get alternative cast screws. This requires us to pick up some hard drives early on in the game, so there will be a little bit of combat involved in this particular playstyle. The reason you want to get this early on is the more research you have done, the more the alternative recipe pool becomes diluted and the less likely you are to find this. Getting this early on also greatly simplifies some of your later game factory builds. But with all of that out of the way you start is you go into the Northern Forests, pick a name for your session, and then we're going to skip the intro. When you spawn in, first thing you want to make sure you do is go into options, go into controls, and make sure hold to sprint is unticked. This is just to do with the way when you're running around. You can just spend a lot of your time running, and if you have to hold down the sprint key, it just does get really tiring after a while. As well as that, it cuts down on the amount of buttons you have to hold down when you're trying to do sprint jumping or slide jumping. Then you're going to want to do a quick check to see where the nearest ore is. Now, we're looking for iron ore, but it's over this direction. I've done this several times before, so I know exactly where it is. Now, on your way there, what you want to do is keep an eye out for branches. You're going to find lots of branches around the place, and they are the best source of biofuel early on. We should only have to do one run. As long as we keep an eye out for a few branches along the way, we can definitely get plenty of this stuff. Now, on the way to where direction we're going, there's going to be a cliff in the way. Just go slightly around it. Otherwise, you'll end up falling off it, and that would be unpleasant. So we just go down here. And then after you come around this corner, just on our right here is going to be our first set of danger. We want to actually go in here and raid this crash site. It does have some resources that would be useful to us. Where are they? There is... Yeah, there's a couple of hogs mining this, wherever they are. Oh, yeah, there they are. God damn it. You can usually kill some of them from up here. Once you've dealt with all of the hogs that are around the place, make sure to grab all of the parts that you find around here. This is going to jumpstart your economy. There should be 2 batches of wire, 1 batch of screws, and 2 batches of reinforced iron plate. And there's also some circuit boards in the water over here somewhere. Yeah, grab those while you're here. Then we're going to go over to our new base. Before we start skipping ahead on things, we're going to have to clear out this area and just put down a very basic base to grind us out a few base components. This could take a second. Once we've cleared out that area, there's also one area over here we have to clear out and one area back there at the copper we have to clear out. This will just take a moment. With the whole area cleared, it's time to put down a quick hub. Which way you place it is up to you, but normally what I try and do is get the power facing to the right-hand side. It just makes it easier when we're extending on our power grid. Right about there should be fine. Then we're going to want to stick down some very basic construction. We just want a little bit of production to actually bootstrap our economy. You can go there. We'll put another mine over here. There's actually these stones on top of them that I used to think you had to chop off, but no, you can just throw a mine right on top of that. The mine animation does not care. It'll drill straight through that rock and leave it there. Alright, give us 2 seconds here. This here is just chucking iron ore right into a smelter. Smelter then turns that into iron ore. Iron ore gets turned into iron plate. Similar over there, except it turns into iron bars. Then with that done, we're going to need to hook up some power. That requires these biomass burners, but before you do any of that, just immediately go into the craft bench and craft biomass out of those leaves. Throwing leaves in is a waste of time. They burn up so quickly. So immediately just change that into solid biomass. As well as that wood we only got 156, but that's going to produce 780 biomass, which should carry us over to, actually, we shouldn't need much more than that to get to steel and coal. If you hold down space, you're going to, of course, craft them, but the fastest way is just to tap space. If you tap space once, it just crafts and keeps crafting. To hook these up, it's fairly simple. You just stick down a power pole, but preferably 2, and then you hook them up to the power poles. And because of the limitation on the amount of connectors each can have, you're probably going to end up putting about 4 or 5 power poles around there just to make sure that you don't run out of connectors. And then we shall just connect them all back to here, one to there, and then hook up the power to all the devices so we can start production. This is only going to be some quick stuff we put together before we get around to maybe hopscotching around a bit. Then do the same thing over here, copper ore, smelted copper ingots, and then straight into copper wire. That's the very basic started. We also want to throw together concrete really quickly as well. These are all the basic building blocks. Now, we're not going to be putting together all the building blocks. We're skipping some stuff here. So we will have to do some manual crafting for screws and cable. Those things we're not actually going to be building ourselves. Well, we're not going to be building via machines, but you have to build so little of them, it's usually not worth putting down the machines. We chucked out our last mine on top of the limestone, and we'll bring that down here and turn that into concrete. It's about this point we're going to run into 2 minor issues. The first is we've just run out of cable, but that's fine. We have plenty of wire, and we're producing wire over there, so we can just run in here for a minute and crank out the cable. It's so fast to produce this is why we don't bother with a machine for it. Done, and then we can put down a constructor. As well as that, if you press the F key, it brings up the deconstruction menu, or the deconstruction option. You can just hover over something, and if you middle mouse click, it brings you up a copy of that building. This is just a very handy way of duplicating something, like duplicating a belt or duplicating some building nearby, or even power connectors or something along those lines. As well as that, one other problem we have right now is we're about to run out of power. If we check under our power section here, our max consumption is 39 megawatts, our max capacity is 40. Each one of these little bioreactors at the back can only produce 20 megawatts. So we're going to need to throw in a biomass burner. In fact, we might just stick in 2 for now. Oh wait, at iron plate, we can fix that in a moment. Plug you into the grid as well. That is the very basic started. We will not be sticking around here for very long though. We're just going to top up on iron plate. Each one of these buildings can hold a small amount of reserves, usually a stack size. So for iron plate, I believe it's 200. And for iron rods, I want to say 200 as well. And then for the copper wire, I believe it goes up as far as 500. We are going to stick some storage containers on those, but first we want to do 2 things. The first thing we want to do is knock out one of the techs, basically logistics. We want to get our hands on splitters. It just allows us to be a little bit more productive. So let's go grab ourselves some items, and any items we don't have we can make more of. For example, if you come over here to this, you'll notice it's got a whole bunch of iron ingots it's not spending. That's because this thing can't actually process all the iron ore it's been given, well, all the iron ingots it's been given. This way we can take these and use this to craft a few things on the side. Same with the copper wire over there. That'll have a little backlog of copper ingots we can use for something. Just one moment. A little bit of handcrafting later, and we're ready to knock out that one. Now, the reason we want this is because of the conveyor splitters. They are absolutely essential for just squeezing out that little bit of early productivity we're going to need.
Milestone reached.
Perfect. Now we can immediately use those. The first thing we did with that splitter is we stuck one on back here. That splitter allows us to split out that copper ore that's coming in, because these things only consume 15 apiece. This means we're consuming all of that copper ore and turning it into wire. Now we're just going to do the same thing with iron rods, and after that we shall be ready to leave and go on a little bit of a speed kill spree. When you do get access to new items in your inventory, what you can do is attach them to your belt down here. So we're going to put, say, the conveyor splitter on 5 by pressing 5 while hovering over it, and conveyor merger on 6. And sometimes you can even get these things to work by just, yep, there we, oh, come on. Seriously? You're going to make me, there we go. Doubled iron rod production. So I'm probably going to have to add on more power. Yeah, your power requirements are going to balloon a little bit at the start, but we're not going to get too greedy. We're just here to get the basics, and then we're out of here. In fact, we're going to put down a few of these, because it's good to have a bunch of extra power in here. The load is spread across all the bioburners, so the more you have, the slower they will burn. Well, assuming you haven't actually overloaded your network. So if you're only consuming 1 megawatt and you have, say, 100 megawatts of bioburners, then it will only consume at 1/100th the normal speed. They actually consume only as necessary. Which reminds me, we should probably put on a second concrete as well before we go. We can't quite double concrete. The reason being, we're only getting in about 60 limestone per minute, and each one of these takes 45. So we've chucked down 2 of them, though, just so we can squeeze out that extra little bit of concrete. You don't have to double up production on everything, but I did find that when I only had a single copper wire, a single iron plate, single iron rod, and single concrete, it did slow me down just a tiny bit. So if you want, you can get away without putting down 2 of each. You can get by with 1 of each, and this will speed up leaving the base. But I just do like having these in. Now, 1 second while we stick a storage container on the end of each one of these. And done. Just 4 storage containers for each one of our raw materials. And now that that's done, we'll do one last thing before we head out to speed research some stuff. Unless you want to get field research down, namely because we need it for researching things. Requires 300 screws, 100 iron plate, 300 wire. We can just make up the screws really quickly, and we can grab the iron plate out of storage. This allows us to knock out field research, which gives us access to the MAM, which is essential for the next section. Alright, done. Time to leave the nest. Go into construction, go to your equipment workshop, and throw one down. And churn yourself out 3 portable miners. We're going to need these for the next stage. Once they're made, demolish, go out the front door. Well, front door, the door you came in. What we're looking for here is Katerium. We want to knock out the Katerium research tree next because it has some very, very handy abilities that would be very useful for us. At the moment you go out this area you came in, you'll see there's a sort of gentle incline over there. We want to head up there because that's where there's a bunch of Katerium. You'll also see on the left there's those sort of weird rib-looking things that are all over the place. And there's a sort of a stone dolmen over there. Yeah, and a yellow slug. If you want to go in there and get it, you can. There's a bunch of angry dogs, though you have to fight for it. Now, if you keep going straight on up this incline, you'll see a boulder up ahead. Well, we will in a minute. There we go. That's Katerium. And normally you'd have to blast that rock to gain access to the Katerium if you wanted to build a regular mine on it, but we don't want to build a regular mine on it. We just want to put mining drills on top of it. And this stuff isn't even guarded, which is great for us. Those 3 are going to start drilling immediately, and while they start doing that, we are going to go in and produce a MAM. Oh, damn it. I forgot to produce the cable, but that's okay. We can make a craft bench pretty much anywhere we want, and we can use that to crank out the cable we need. Then we can put ourselves together the MAM so we can start research. What you want to do here is grab the Katerium. This is going to trigger the MAM to go, hey, there's some new research you can do. It takes 3 seconds for the research to complete. This is actually due to, I have been informed, a bug where the game can sometimes lock you out of things if it only takes 1 second to do the research. So they switched it up to 3 as a sort of a hack fix. Now what we can do is we can gain access to the inflated pocket dimension. This is going to be so handy. However, the rest of these researches do require a little bit of smelted Katerium. So what we're going to end up doing is going in here, grabbing these, and then doing a little bit of manual crafting. I know I said we try and avoid it as much as possible, but in this instance you can't really avoid it. A little bit of smelted Katerium ingots, and we can now knock out quick wire. There's 2 things in here we really want to gain access to. First is this inflated pocket dimension, which is going to require some reinforced iron plate. We'll grab that in a minute. But we also want to go down here and gain access to blade runners. We won't be able to use them immediately, but they're going to be close enough by that it won't be that bad. So now we have to put in 100 quick wire for the next section. That's easy enough. All we do, smelt up a little bit more Katerium. One thing you can do is you're going to end up with some trash in your inventory you don't want anymore, like a few leftover pieces of wood and things like that. Just throw them into the recycling here, or this trash. You don't need them. The reason we get 3 drills is because if you only have 2, you won't be able to actually mine the ore faster than you can smelt it up into ingots. That's why we have 3 drills. Unlocking this next part of the Katerium tree gives us access to unlock blade runners. That's going to require 10 modular frames. We don't have those just yet, but we'll get around to them, and we're going to need a bunch of quickwire. Now, before we go any further, we're just going to stockpile some quickwire before we leave here, namely because we're going to need, where was it? We're going to need about 10 iron ingots, or 10 Katerium ingots for this, and then we're going to need 100 Katerium ore for that, or quickwire for that, and then we're going to need another 300 quickwire for the Mark II power poles. We want to knock out, have enough to knock out all of those, and still have about 500 quickwire left over. We've constructed enough Katerium wire to keep us going for a while, and even brought along some Katerium ingots, and we're going to knock out power poles Mark II. This just leaves us Blade Runners. Now, Blade Runners are going to require some modular frames, but that's not a problem. Alright, we're going to deconstruct the craft bench and the MAM, and we're going to get on our way. We're going to leave those mines behind. We don't need them. And the first thing we want to do is go grab ourselves some modular frames. Actually, we're going to pick up some wood along the way. We're going to need that later. But we're going to keep going forward, and up this hill here, there's a crash site. This crash site contains some modular frames, which we are going to need. Unfortunately, it's guarded by a bunch of those... Yeah, hold on. I gotta go take care of these. Once you've taken care of them, run up the hill. There's going to be a couple more up here somewhere guarding this area. Oh, though I think there's a bunch of pale berries over here, yeah. Keep an eye out for the pale berries. They can help heal us up later, though you will notice that our health is regenerating. Your health regenerates by default back up to 3 bars, which means so long as you don't mind fighting on a little bit of low health, you can generally get by with the odd scratch or two and recover from without having to waste all your food supplies. Come on. Here you go. When fighting these things, there's 2 ways to do it. One is the strafing like this, and the other is you can just jump over them. Though jumping over them gets a little bit tricky if you're not on flat terrain. Now, around this area you're going to find modular frames, some heat sinks. There should be a couple of stacks of modular frames. Yeah, take all of those. We want a lot. Oh, there's even more modular frames. That is all the modular frames we're going to need for now. Do note, though, that you can't open this. You need a black powder. Some of these things can be opened, and we can gain the hard drives out of them, but not these ones. Now we're going to go back the way we came. The plan here is actually to head back towards our hub and take a right before we get there. The reason being, we want to go get some reinforced iron plate, and we want to go back to base to knock out a few more techs and get our hands on... Oh, 1 second. This is going to sting a bit. That's okay, we regenerate back up to 3 health. So, we're going to head back that way, and I will show you the location where you can get another crash site. Fortunately, it's surrounded by poison gas, so it's going to be one of those quick run-in and out jobs where we run in, grab what we want, and get out of there before the poison kills us. Where's the hub? Ah, yes, that direction. So, as you can see, there's those ribs over there in the sky, and our base is over there. You can see at the top, the compass, the hub is telling us, which tells us where our hub is. But we want to go just to avoid... Go away. Go back home. We want to go just to the right of it over here. Alright, here we are. Now, there is a bunch of those plants that spit poison around the area, but we just want to go in and get 4 things. Where is it? 1, cable. 2, computers. 3, reinforced plate. And there's a 4th reinforced plate over this side. Ow. Yeah, also a very angry doggy. Let's get out of here. Now we want to head back to our hub. The reason we want to head back to our hub is we want to knock out a few more techs and get our hands on Blade Runners. While we're on the way, let's go grab this slug. Now that we're back home, we want to do a few things very quickly. Also, you'll notice, yeah, we've stockpiled a bunch of resources. But first things first, we want to grab down the MAM. We want to pop in here and go straight into Katerium.
New building unlocked.
We're going to crack open Pocket Dimension. This takes 2 minutes, and it requires that 10 Katerium ore, and we just picked up those reinforced iron plates from the last crash site we raided. Then, while that's going on, we're going to get ready to knock out a couple of milestones. The 2 milestones we're looking to knock out are Parts Assembly, which gives us access to rotors, very important, and the Resource Sync program. These should both actually not be that bad. We're going to have plenty of iron plate and iron rods around. We've just got to crank out a little bit of cable or manually crank out of some cable and screws. But that's not an issue. We've got plenty of the base resources here. Our Pocket Dimension has just completed. You'll notice our inventory over there is missing 6 slots. And those 6 slots are there. Well, they were missing, but they were handy to get. Now we can get our access to Blade Runners. This requires the modular frames that we picked up from that other crash site and the Katerium wire we'd already created. While that's going on, I'm going to get back to making some screws. We're just shy a few screws to knock out Parts Assembly. Or is it? Yeah, we're going to need another, 400 screws. This could take me a minute. First off, we load up the Resource Sync program. We'll just chuck in all the resources necessary, but we're not going to launch it just yet. The reason for that is if we launch it, we won't be able to research another tech for 5 minutes. However, if we go in here and select a second milestone, we can also load that one up. Oh, come on. There we go. Now we've got the ability to launch both milestones. So we could go in here, select it as a milestone and launch it, and we can go in here and select the Resource Sync program and launch it. Let's launch the first one. Yeah,
milestone
perfect.
Reached. Funneling parts into the examples of...
Then we can go right back in, and though normally you shouldn't be able to send off a second one, because we'd already put the resources in, we can go into Parts Assembly, select milestone, and launch that one too. That allows us to knock out 2 technologies at the same time without having to wait for that thing to come back. Saves us a bunch of time and effort. With all of that out of the way, we're just about ready to start getting into the Blade Runners. Blade Runners will save us a bunch of effort, so let's just chuck down an awesome sink. Awesome sinks were designed to allow you to dump resources, or they act as basically a sink to get rid of resources you don't need anymore, or to generate points so that you can buy some swanky stuff or random stuff later on in the game. What we're going to use it for, though, is we're going to get rid of computers. These are the computers we found around the crash sites. We are going to dump them into this awesome sink to generate points, and then we're going to use some of those points to buy a few key ingredients to help us in our game. Normally you wouldn't bother wasting resources like computers in this machine, but this will allow us to jumpstart our economy and skip a whole bunch of annoying things, and computers just happen to be so efficient. Now let's print those coupons. Done. We'll take those, thank you very much, and then we'll immediately eat that. That thing takes about 30 megawatts, so yeah, you don't want to keep that thing around. Done, done, and done. And did our research finish? I think our research did finish, did it? Yes, Blade Runners are complete. That is excellent news.
Equipment unlocked.
You know what? We'll come back to you in a minute. For now, what we want to do is we want to bring up the Awesome Shop. The Awesome Shop, it requires screws I don't have. The Awesome Shop does not require any power, and we can trade in a few coupons here. First thing you want to buy is these factory ladders. They're going to be very, very useful. And then we go into parts, and we just want to pick up 100 rotors. This is just so handy. 1 second, we'll buy those. Done. Now, you will have to move those into your inventory, otherwise they stay in the Awesome Shop. And thank you kindly. And once that's done, production, go grab yourselves an equipment workshop. Has to be equipment because what we want to make is Blade Runners. Blade Runners require 3 rotors. Now, we could have crafted the rotors, but you know what? We're going to need a bunch of those later, so that's why we bought them with the Awesome Shop. And we're going to be buying a few more with the Awesome Shop, which is a little bit controversial, but I think it speeds things along nicely. That gives us Blade Runners, and this just makes the game completely different. For example, this is our normal running speed. Yeah, it's pretty slow. Well, it feels pretty normal, I suppose, but this is what we run like when we're on blades. And we can also jump much further, higher, and slide jumping is just so much more fun. These are just a game changer when you get them. We're about an hour and 5 minutes in, and we finally got our hands on Blade Runners. That was sort of one of those milestones you really want to get around to. Anyway, next, there are several technology things we can access now that we just have been lazy about getting around to, namely all under the alien carapace section. We've killed so many of those hog things, or whatever you call them. We can knock out the first one. The second one just gives us biomass. We can literally turn these into biomass. One of them will turn into 100 biomass. We've got access to these slots down here. I'd really like to get the rebar gun right now, but that requires reinforced iron plate we don't have. Nutrients-wise, we can also knock out barrel nuts, and I believe we got pale berries as well. We'll be getting around to the bacon agaric later.
New object
But might as well knock
added to
these
the
out now.
object scanner.
Now that that is done, perfect. What we're going to do is head straight around the corner. Around the corner is that crash site that we went to earlier, and at the time we couldn't open it. The reason we couldn't open it is it required rotors. We now have rotors though, so we can just run around the corner and open this sucker up. Oh, sorry, it wasn't rotors, it was modular frames. And boom, we've now got our first hard drive. Then we can just throw down the
Data
MAM.
on the hard drive has been salvaged and can be
Go in here, click on hard drives, and scan the hard drive. Let's hope we get screws out of that one. That would be really nice. Alright, with that started, our next bet is to go to another crash site to get even more hard drives. Yep, I can't believe I just bounced off that bird. Seriously? We're going to head this direction. Now, over there is a crash site we want to get to. It's a little bit tricky, I think we can manage. Now that we've got the Blade Runners, it makes this so much handier. You want to hop over there, and then we're going to want to jump down over here. And I believe there's some monsters around here somewhere, but let's try and avoid them. Where is it? Come on. Ah, there we are. So we want to hop down here. The Blade Runners make this so much handier. Okay, let's see. You need 10 watts of power and rotors. We didn't have the rotors until just recently, so coming down here would have been a waste. Let's throw down power. Throw down a biomass burner. Right about there is fine. Throw in some fuel and plug it in. Second hard drive acquired. There's also another reason why we came here. Namely, there is some encased industrial beams lying down there, and we're going to need them to open another transport pod later. But for now, yeah, let me just kill these bugs. There is a really nasty spitter down there. I do not want to tangle with them. But there is, where is it? Yeah, encased industrial beams over there. We want to go get those. There we go. We got a bunch of encased industrial beams, a whole bunch of screws, some modular frames, and even some motors. This place is an absolute goldmine. Oh, and a hard drive as well. Now we're going to have to head back to our base, but we're going to take the long way around. We're going to be back down here later, so there is no... I actually don't mind clearing this place out. We ran all the way back to base. With Blade Runners, it's so much easier to avoid getting killed if you can just keep running. Alright, our next bet is we're going to put down this space elevator. For that, we're going to need 1,500 wire, 400 iron rods, 250 iron plate, and a bunch of concrete. All things we are producing en masse. So let's go grab those. And there we go. Plenty of resources. Now, let's... put you right there. That's going to take a minute to assemble. Production-wise, we're going to need to stick 2 assemblers on that. 1 second. We're going to have to put... we'll put 1 assembler there. And we'll stick the other assembler beside it. These 2 assemblers are going to be set to produce smart plating. It's going to take 50 smart plating to get us to tier 3 and 4, where we can get access to coal and steel. Oh. When it comes to this machine, you can click it anywhere to access its menu. You don't have to go around to the... like some access thing over here. Yeah, you don't need to stand there. It's like any other building. You can access them from any point. Alright, for these things though, they require a bunch of reinforced iron plate and a bunch of rotors. Namely, they're going to need, well, 50 reinforced iron plate and 50 rotors. So I'm afraid we are back to the awesome shop. And we're going to go to parts, and we're going to pick up the necessary, where is it, reinforced iron plate. With that purchased, we can go back to these, and what we're going to do here is this. We're going to stick in 25 reinforced iron plate and 25 rotors. That means it'll produce 25 smart plating. And we do the same in the other one. With both of them hooked up that way, all we have to do is plug in some power, and then wait about 25 minutes. Yoink. Do we have enough power for this? I'm not sure. We'll find out in a minute. Did it redline our grid? No, still going. Alright. Then we get transport belts from the front, and you know what? That'll probably fit in. Will it look nice? No. Do we care? Even less. Alright. That means in 25 minutes, we're going to have enough smart plating to get us into tier 3 and tier 4. I am going to cut the tutorial in half right here because it's just, there's too much stuff to cover in a half-hour time period. Just to recap what we did and why we did it, we basically went with iron plate, iron rods, concrete, and copper wire, just one of each, and then we used the resulting resources to research the tech to give us splitters so that we could double down on all of them. Now, the reason I like doubling down on all of them, it gives us in a huge influx of resources quickly so that we can build this space elevator and get the tech for it. However, it does take a little bit of time, and you could hang around here and just craft a bunch of stuff manually yourself, but that's kind of not very progressive. Instead, I prefer to go out to the Katerium node outside, do all the research on the Katerium so that we can gain access to the Blade Runners. Now, then we use the awesome sync to sync the computers because they give us the best return on investment, and then we use the resulting coupons we get to buy a few things that will help boost us into the mid-game. Now, the next step is going to be to spend the 12 minutes we have while these are all crafting to run around, grab 3 more hard drives, and raid a bunch of sites. But that's for the second half of the tutorial. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and good luck.